and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
For the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. How are you? And welcome to the show. And as we are getting ready to go into this whole thing, typically speaking, I like to have the segment, my news, views, and updates, although it's not a lot of stuff as I'm recording that I really have to get into. So I'm going to do a condensed version of that. And then we're going to go into the full review of the episode in question. And that'll be their Nashville knockout episode, which for obvious reasons they named it as such, even though that wasn't the main event. I guess that would be the biggest thing that they had going on within that show at that time. So to push this along, and before I forget, if you have not done so, I forget to mention it. Please go on to the channel, wherever you happen to be listening to this right now, whether it's a podcast or you catch it on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, you can do it pretty easily. If you're not, you can go on to the Women's Pro Wrestling Network channel on YouTube. There are polls that go up, generally speaking, weekly. Which are there to reflect, at least with this particular listenership, how you viewed the program that WOW presented that particular week. If you have not done so, I'm asking you now, please participate. Go on, leave your comments, make your vote. It's either good or a great, terrible, or eh. So, whichever one of those you particularly fall underneath, your votes and your opinions, comments or otherwise, are welcome. That being the case, let us go into this quick news, views, and updates. And what is happening out there in the world of women's professional wrestling? Well, as I'm recording this, we've come off of the Evolution pay-per-view. Well, I shouldn't say come off of it. This is right as is going on. WOW has already aired for me as of this recording. Saturday night's main event has aired. Evolution is airing. That makes sense? Because I got two air dates for WOW on any given episode. But I will not go into the review of Evolution. I'm going to save that until the next podcast. That should be coming out in relatively short order. But from what I've seen thus far, when I just kind of took a peek into it, looks magnificent. I have to give it that. Looks great. The only thing I can really say in a counterbalance point is that I realize that it is not an apples to apples comparison of WOW, but holy smokes, that WWE production is, they say it's second to none, and I would, in this particular case, greatly agree. If you haven't had the chance to watch it, I would say that you should, give it a shot. As of right now, I think they're up on match 2. That's what was that? JC Jane and Jordan Grace. So yeah, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna watch this thing in its entirety instead of just peeking in every once in a while. But from what I've seen thus far, looks very good. What else is happening going on here? We've had interactions with Timeless Toni Storm and her, I guess, colleague champion in Mercedes Moné. I expect those two to have some level of butting heads. But I just wanted to mention one other thing as it relates to AEW as a whole, not just the women's division. I know that they're going into some of these smaller venues largely because they lost the ability to really sell the larger locations and NBA arenas and whatnot. But I do have to admit, in some of these places, the look looks fantastic. And just to have a different look every once in a while, I just like that. I like having a different aesthetic. I like having a different feel for the product over time. Which is why when WoW first began in the television studios that they're in, I was very pleased with it. The only problem is that they just remain there. And I do think that they have an episode upcoming that they're going to probably be at the San Diego Comic-Con or the Vegas Street Festival that are coming. And just for the look, I would really hope that they hurry up and bring those episodes. But getting back to AEW, they had a fantastic little venue. It felt very, very intimate, yet not small at the same time. Of course, the fan base, they are questionable on occasion, but a good fan base does make the show feel very, very enjoyable. When you could, for lack of a better term, really feel the energy that they have in appreciation of everything that's going on in front of them. I know that is not necessarily the job of the fan to add aesthetic or atmosphere to the show, but they do. And I just wanted to take a moment to point that out because I'd seen a couple of episodes of AEW Dynamite take place in these other smaller locations and what have you. And I just on a visual note, I enjoyed them. So I just wanted to have a moment there because it was on my mind, and I just had to bring that up and say, hey, good on them that they found something in some way to make this continue to work. And I hope that one day they may be able to return to NBA size arena, but if they do not, then hey, not a bad look for them. Not a bad. And hey, we know that Tony Khan can continue just firing off money at it as much as he wants to keep that thing going as long as he needs. So I doubt that it's going to stop anytime soon. Before I move on into that, or I said any other news, because most of this stuff is just show results and things like that. Nothing of real major importance. So I am going to say, for the benefit of not just droning on to kind of stretch out the show, and believe I've done shows that have reached almost 3 hours now. I'm surprised that I was able to do that. I mean, I think the last podcast I did was like 2 hours and 50-something minutes. Whew. So rather than to do that, why don't we just move into the review of the show, and then we'll save any major things that, if it pops up for the next episode. Like I said, I do want to talk about Evolution, but I want to sit down and watch it in its entirety. I want to really get the chance to feel the show. From what I saw already, I can say that it was a hot crowd. That crowd seemed very, very, very into everything that was going on there. I'd already mentioned the production value that the WWE had brought forth for Evolution. It was nothing that you or I would not have expected. You expect top-notch production out of them, and they delivered. I can only assume, because we do not get ratings at this point in time from WoW, from any source, that this night may have, well, not just this night, both of them, Saturday Night's Main Event and this, might have eaten into their viewership a little bit. Never mind the fact that All In was, same weekend. I mean, it was a loaded wrestling weekend. when we look at it from top to bottom, that whether they were intended to compete with them or not, they probably drew the short end of that stick. I mean, you talk about NXT, Great American Bash, All In, episodes of Collision, Saturday Night's Main Event, the Evolution. I mean, it was just loaded with wrestling. More wrestling than I probably was ever going to watch. I had to pick and choose the things that I want to check out. Never mind that if you go earlier in the week, then you're talking about your SmackDowns and Raws and even Impact. So I can fully see that it might have eaten into some level of viewership just on the nature of it being an all women's paper. Well, do we really do pay-per-views anymore? PLEs. So something to discuss, but wanted to talk about the production value and give them praise for that, and that I have every intentions of going through a brief rendition or a brief review of Evolution, but we will save that, and let's jump on over to this week's review, which is going to be for a while. And let me give a little break so that the algorithms of whatever it is that you're looking at or listening to can do their thing. But when we come back, right into the review.
You ever heard of the phrase, you give a man a fish and he eats for one day. But if you teach a man how to fish, he eats forever. And I've taught all you bitches how to fish. And this is the thanks I get. The opportunity of a lifetime and everything that I've been through in the last few months. You guys welcomed me back when I was on Charmorro's side, and then the minute Natty comes, a new shiny object comes into play, and it's screw promise all over again. Screw promise, forget promise. This time and forever, moving forward, is forget y'all. From the bottom of my heart, y'all.
And we are back. This episode to be talked about is WOW's episode 344, Season 3, Episode 44, title Nashville Knockout, air date July the 12th. And for me, in the chronological number, it will be 148. They begin this episode with a recap of the tag team hardcore match. It shows the end result, including the double spear that ended the match in a no contest. Match was enjoyable, and just as a recap for me, I wish it had ended a little bit differently, but you can check that out in the previous podcast. The first match up is Holidead taking on Santana Garrett. My first note, this is a babyface versus babyface match. Why? However, I did appreciate that Zayn gave some background on Holidead and Garrett's history. I thought that was a nice touch, and at least he tried to justify the match taking place to some degree, because there's really no reason for it. But at least he gave that. This, for whatever reason, led to them talking about Japan and time zones and how people like to get in early and whatnot. It would kind of just, I don't want to say rambling on, but they kind of drifted off and started talking about something else, even though it was relative to the match, because it was supposed to be, the first time that they went against each other was in Japan. So that's what kind of brought that on. No one was really sympathetic in this. This was built around a match to be competitive. The closest thing that I could really compare it to is you get a good chunk of that on the indies, where sometimes it'll just be a match for the sake of having a match, right? And the original version of Ring of Honor, not the AEW owned Ring of Honor, but the original version of Ring of Honor had a lot of that. It was, we're gonna have this match, we're gonna address each other, shake hands, have a good clean bout. It kind of built around the idea of the competition / athleticism, right? And it was good. I have no complaints about how this match played out. I thought that they did a good job. I thought that Garrett and Holidead did illustrate some chemistry. The only drawback that I felt that this match had is it's kind of the same thing I've mentioned in a previous match with Santana Garrett before. When we get to the end of the match, it's kind of sold, or at least the narrative of it is that, she pushed her to her limit. This being that Garrett won, right? It's not really important to go through this thing blow by blow, so just bear with me. There is a point that, before I get past my other note, there is a point where Garrett does the rise and shine, although it's not as smooth as it normally is. Nothing that would take away from the match, however. I just wanted to bring that up because you had to know at some point it was going to happen. Like, it was bound to happen when she's doing this on a regular basis, match after match after match after match, right? It's the old rear waist lock. I get shrugged off. She rolls through, rolls back up to the kip up, and then forearm shot. Well, at some point, it was bound to miss its cue, for lack of a better term. So it happens. Those things take place. I would not look at that as anything, as a slight on the match whatsoever. It just was what it was. However, on the editing side of things, I think I would have tried to get it removed if I could have. If there was any way to get around that at all, I think I would just be like, hey, let's get this out of here so that it doesn't come off that way. If it were a live show, then you accept it for what it is. Mess ups happen, and again, considering the move that she's doing, it was bound to take place at some point in time. But it's an edited show. They could have covered it up with a crowd shot. They could, maybe clipped it down a bit, something. But since we didn't do that, we just have to take it for what it was, right? The finish of this match, I've already told you who won. And it should not be a surprise. It's Santana Garrett. But the finish of the match did follow the rise and shine portion of this. And again, you know, what happened is what happened. And Holidead had to kind of stand there for a moment and take it, you know, just wait for her to get back up. But once she was back up, then she popped her with a super kick, and then she got the pin. Garrett wins. And then she cuts a promo. She gives credit to Holidead. But she's cutting the same promo as she has been doing about, I'm getting closer to gaining the championship. This was not bad, but getting back to the point of what I was starting with. This felt like a 20-minute match crammed into 8. It is what I said about the match that she was in. It was a triple threat, I believe. I think that was the one with Genesis and Payola. It felt like they wanted this to be a back and forth exchange of holds, a battle between two somewhat equal but opposing forces in the ring. And, you know, just in terms of the narrative that McLean said at the end, and Garrett herself, it's like she pushed her to her limit. You know that. When you're doing that, there is a visual image of what that match would look like. And whereas I thought the match was fine, and I enjoyed it, and I would watch it again if somebody asked, like, hey, look at this match, sure. I wouldn't have any problem with that whatsoever, but it didn't feel like the competitive match that it was being made out to be, if that makes sense to you. It's one of these matches that would have benefited from it having extra time. In my opinion, if the narrative of the match was, well, Holidead pushed Santana Garrett to her limit, it's one of these matches that could have benefited from having more time on it. It didn't have that, and I don't think the match was anywhere beyond, say, 6 minutes worth of time. And for me, for what they sounded like they were trying to get across, didn't feel like that was enough for it. Sorry, but it just didn't. Again, do not want to paint the picture that it was a bad match. I'm just going off of what the narrative of what they were trying to do, particularly David McLean, like, yeah, she pushed it to the limit here. And I just did not get that. To rephrase it, because I said 8, but like I said, I think the match is about 6. 20-minute match shoved into 6 minutes. The finish should have been edited better. It was good, but not the competitive match that they think. Before I move on, has Santana Garrett even brought up anything about Payola Mayfield since that attack that she's had? How long has that thing even been? I mean, you know, we've seen her being Mayfield, and Garrett for that matter, since that took place, but has it ever been addressed that, hey, you stopped me from winning the championship when I was this close to getting it, or something? Is that just a dropped angle now? I mean, where was that supposed to go? Because I'm looking at my notes here. Let me see. What day was that? All right. So the episode in review is, well, chronologically 148. The match that I'm talking about, that I'm waiting to hear whether it was addressed or not, was 145. And we did see these two exist on the same show in the same episode at some other point in time. So, what's the deal here? Is that just something like, oh, we just need a way to get out of this match without Garrett winning, so we just had her come on out there and break up the fall and forget about it? It never happened. I mean, I don't know. Anyhow, we have gotten this. Garrett, Holidead, fine match. But I was just, before I moved on, it was just a little thing that hit my mind. I was like, where are we going with that? Next segment is a promo for Nikki Nashville, better known as J-Rod to wrestling fans elsewhere. Segment after that, of course, is the match itself. This is Fury versus Nikki Nashville. I feel the need to say right now that I am probably not going to be a Nikki Nashville fan. That does not mean that she didn't do a good job. That doesn't mean that she didn't have a good match. It doesn't even really mean that her look is completely ridiculous. I mean, given WOW's past and track record, they could have easily made her look far more a cartoon character than she came out being. But she was every bit the character that you would expect. Having said that, I mean, look, this is probably one of the few times that they had a debut that actually felt like it was successful. Normally, when we talk about anybody debuting in the WOW, they got to lose like 5 or 6 times before they get any win anywhere with anybody. This was different. Now, first off, we got Fury. I had been saying that she was rudderless, but it seems like they've settled her into the position of being the official, unofficial gatekeeper of WOW. So if you got to have a match and you're coming in, then you may as well be going through her. And that's fine. You know, I'll take that more so than her just kind of aimlessly wandering around. Speaking of angles or things that were brought up that never went anywhere, what happened to the vicious Veronica Varoom thing that I'm looking at Fury as my mentor and blah, blah. Hadn't heard another word about that. Anyhow, so we got Nikki Nashville coming out. And for me, and I would just say this relates for me. This is kind of like Dusty Rhodes going to the WWF back in the day. It wasn't so much that he stopped being Dusty Rhodes, because he was still Dusty Rhodes. He wasn't the American Dream Dusty Rhodes. He was the common man Dusty Rhodes. And there was slight variations within that. It's kind of forgotten that when he got there initially, he didn't just start up wearing polka dots. It's just somewhere along the line, this man decided, hey, I want you to wear polka dots. And most people looked at that like, that ain't the Dusty that I remember. And this is kind of like that. This is not J-Rod, and I accept that it's not J-Rod. It's Nikki Nashville. Nikki Nashville is not a bad wrestler. Nikki Nashville wasn't even presented badly. In fact, I would say they presented her very favorably. It's just something about the character of Nikki Nashville that I just disagree with. And maybe she'll win me over. Maybe she'll get a promo. Maybe she'll have something to make me accept who she is in this persona. That could happen. I am not going to discount the idea that J-Rod could get the Nikki Nashville gimmick, character, look over. I'm not going to discount that because it is still very possible. Do I believe that is going to happen within the WOW's television? No, I don't, because most people don't get a chance to get on the microphone to begin with. And if she doesn't get a chance to get on the mic and explain who Nikki Nashville is or why she's there, what she's doing, why she's coming out looking like a Dallas Cowgirl cheerleader reject or something along those lines, then it's just going to be another cartoon character on the roster. Having said that, Zane gives as much background as he can, but he drifts off talking about Selena Majors for some reason, because anybody that has anything to do with country or country music or blah, 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 well, Selena likes that, so, they had that moment. McLean tries to set the table of WoW as being the big leagues versus the indies. I understand he has to do that. I do. I don't fully agree. Now, I think I should clarify, every promotion on the indies is not some sort of bigger deal. There's many of them that don't do anything. But I also cannot just justifiably say, well, WoW is a bigger deal for some person's career in the long run as some of the high-profile indies. Some of those higher-profile indies have a better chance of getting that person the next step in their career than anything I've seen WoW do thus far. Doesn't mean that WoW can't. It just means that they haven't. So this match seemingly was about trying to help Nikki Nashville look good. And we will refer to her by her WoW persona. And it started off as such. As soon as the lockup took place, Nashville chucks Fury down. So we got the big show of strength there. Although it's kind of interesting that it's like, hey, it's Nikki Nashville from Ohio. That just sounded like a weird statement to me. Like, I get that she's not actually born in Nashville and that she doesn't necessarily need to be from Nashville to call herself that. It just kind of felt weird. Like, hey, yeah, this is Nikki Nashville from Ohio. It's like, being Brian Atlanta from Detroit. It just sounds like a stupid thing to do. But anyhow, so it starts off with that pretty well, and it shows that she's got some strength. And I was glad to see that she didn't just begin and get tossed around and out-wrestled and tied in knots and all that stuff. We didn't get any of those things, so it's cool. We also got Fury selling the idea that this woman's strong. So when she goes down, you can see the look in her face. We also, once she decides that she wants to turn on the steam or juice it up a little bit, because we got a power slam. We got a second show. We got a body slam. I shouldn't say power slam. And then at that point, that's when Fury decides, okay, I'm going to give you a quick kick in the gut and a backhand, which has become one of her primary functions, to give a good old back slap to somebody. And then she takes control. We see the Koji clutch be executed somewhere in this match, but we also see Nashville able to somehow claw her way over to the ropes. So she's able to get out of it. Well, I mean, she didn't necessarily counter it, but her strength still got her where she needed to be. The thing that really stood out once we got to the finish, and this isn't a long match, we have a section of it where Nashville charges into Fury in the corner. Right? This is after Nashville gives her like a spin wheel kick, and Fury gets up in the corner, facing away from the commentator's booth. Nashville comes in with a reverse elbow, and then she hoists Fury up and walks her out to the middle of the ring, which is impressive. And walks her out so she can give her the backdrop in the center rather than by the ropes. Again, impressive maneuver. And it feels like at that point we're selling the strength of Nashville, definitely. And then we get a Goldberg moment. Nashville takes Fury up, and maybe she was assigned as the opponent because maybe they felt like she would give her the best opening match that she could get. But Nashville takes her up, hoists her into the air. There was a little bit of a struggle there. And then she takes over for the jackhammer. 1, 2, 3. That's it. She wins her debut. One of the few people to come in there and win their debut. I have mentioned multiple times, I do not necessarily believe that just because it's your debut that you have to win. But if you have somebody that you intend on doing something with, if you're trying to make them come off like a star or give them the potential to being the star is probably a better thing that they do when they enter into, your production, your show, your league, whatever you want to call it. It was a good debut. I just personally wish that she was in her indie persona. And some of that does stem from, I think they would get more out of it than having a Nikki Nashville. We still don't know, or at least as of this recording, I still do not know what her name is going to be on American Gladiators. But I would venture to say, whatever name she takes, whatever look that she has, is probably going to be more akin to J-Rod than Nikki Nashville will be. So, and I know they didn't have a crystal ball when they shot these episodes. I know that this is all old, coming up on a year worth of this being done. We're back in August and September, so we're approaching a year. And I know that they could not have possibly know, hey, she's going to be on American Gladiators. We need to try to do something to take advantage of that. But this is one of those moments that I really feel like American Gladiators will probably get more eyes on their product than WoW is going to do currently. And if they had the ability to take advantage of it by saying, hey, and one of the Gladiators is a star wrestler here, well, that would be great. I just somehow do not think that they're going to do it, nor attempt to take advantage of it, assuming that she returns in the first place. Because we have to remember, as stated, these matches have been shot. They were already done. A year's worth of content was crammed inside of a month and a week or a month and a half or something like that. So there's all of this stuff is just indicating there's a good possibility that after seeing the matches that Nikki Nashville participates in, she may not return or may not show back up on that television because she's gone to do something else. That is all very possible. We have seen this take place pretty much per taping cycle. We've seen people like Robbie Rocket come in and leave, G.I. Jane, Sierra Breeze. So it's not above the realm of reality that this could happen. For their benefit, I would hope that it doesn't. But if it does, will you really be surprised? Will you really be shocked? So anyhow, hopefully that goes somewhere. Time will tell. Next segment is top tier as they are promoted for their upcoming match. And then we get top tier themselves in the segment following that. Top tier takes on Tiki Charmorro, Kalaki the Island Girl, and Sandy Shore in an announced non-title match. Campanelli cuts a promo, and it's okay, I guess. But I just don't know what to say or do about top tier. First off, just based on their opponents coming out there, you already knew who was going to win. I was like, that Kalaki and Charmorro are not winning this thing walking out there with Sandy Shore. It is still my examples being played out in front of their national audience. They're going to cannibalize their roster to try to accommodate having some sort of made-up division for trios titles that mean absolutely nothing. They are the definition of vanity belts. The only vanity belt that's going to be a bigger deal if it ever shows up on TV, and I think it will, is the bus belt. But that would be a vanity belt for an entirely different reason. But these titles don't mean a thing. And this division is laughable. Why is Sandy Shore there? She is part of a different team altogether. What is this for? And why is it important that they're so great? Why is it another non-title match? Which apparently Dave McClain can barely keep a track of, because it's like, all right, another successful win or successful defense. There's really nothing to talk about with Top Tier as a match, because it's basically been the same thing all year. They come out, have a couple of words, tell everybody that the greatest thing, in pro wrestling, and then they have some team that's thrown together so they can beat them and then rinse and repeat that process. Other than the tag team match they lost, and other than 2 out of the 3 of them losing singles matches, they pretty much just run over the same crop of people who have been designated into being in the constant rotation of the trios division for whatever it happens to be. And this match was no different. I've gotten on them, and I shouldn't aim that at Top Tier. The Top Tier and the creative, they have not helped bring any team up since they've had these championships. Not a single one. They haven't even given you the thought that one of them might come close. Baby faces that they have faced have been like tissue paper or toothpicks or glass. That's what they should have called Tara Strike, Mrs. Glass. And the second she was in that sharpshooter, they're like, oh, my leg is broken. And a few love taps on her shins, and she was out and down for the count. Ashley Blaze, same thing. Out and down for the count because of this devastating move. And the babyfaces couldn't get revenge on it. In fact, we're just talking about this. What happens after Kalaki couldn't accomplish it, just move on our way. Go back to the singles and go and lose there too, I guess. But this is what I mean when I talk about, or when I talked about this division just being worthless. And it is. It's worthless. The trios division in WoW is worthless. And the only possible thing that it could be there for is to make a few people happy. I was actually name it down to 3, but I think it's more than that. Whoever came up with the group, and whoever's back there working the creative probably thinks this is phenomenal TV, and that this team actually has genuine heat or something like that, but they don't. They don't. And at this rate, they never will. And I don't think that they are ever going to be at a point where they're going to make any discernible difference to anything that's going on in WoW. And honestly, they're not the only ones, but them being the champions of any sort, regardless of whether I think they're vanity championships or not, they should have been used better than this. I can understand them getting a winning streak. I can understand them getting some kind of heat, but there is not even a hero on the horizon to try to get them off of that mountain. Never mind the fact that they just got those belts just gifted to them after losing a series of matches against Ariel Sky and whomever that she chose as partners that week. So it makes a lot of sense that they would just give you belts. All of this, everything that Top Tier has been a part of has been ridiculous. That is not to say that they've had bad matches. I don't even want to put the match quality in that statement. The match quality that they've had has all been fine. I've not had an issue with most of their matches. I think Campanelli, given time and effort, could probably be really, really good. Her execution is fantastic. I would actually say the neck breaker that she does in the ring far superior than anything Payola Mayfield does with her little run and shoving of the head. Campanelli does a far superior sharpshooter than anything The Rock has ever done. It is not about her work. It's not about Candy Crush's work. It's definitely not about Glitter's work. They just needed to be utilized better. There's no reason that they should be claiming any sort of division for trios in this company when it clearly doesn't exist. They stand alone as their own bubble of a division. Anyhow, the match was fine, but what is Top 10 supposed to do here? One other thing that I don't know why she does this, because I like Kalaki or Tracy Taylor, but she has a move that looks like a bona fide finisher, but she never ever goes for the cover when she does it. It's like that snapmare driver. She'll stand up there, she'll nail somebody with that thing. It looks great, but then the next logical choice that she makes is, I'm going to surf on top of your body. Why? I'm like, if you're not going to win it, which clearly they weren't, at least make the effort. Go for it on TV like you're trying to go for the thing, but it doesn't happen. And I know I've skipped ahead because this match wasn't important, but she does a snapmare driver on Candy Crush, and it looked good. And then the next thing that she does is like she's trying to do that little surfboard thing that she does, which, again, for whatever logical purposes that it might have, what was that for? Campanelli then came in and broke that up, so that didn't go anywhere. And I don't know why the exchange looked so awkward. But Campanelli shoots, I was about to say her indie name, shoots Taylor. Damn, I said it again. Kalaki. Shoots Kalaki into the ropes. I'm sorry, I had Tracy Taylor on the brain. But anyway, yeah, she shoots Kalaki into the ropes. And for whatever reason, it's like she lost her step, or the rhythm of her step. And when she got to the ropes, is like she had to force herself to turn around. And then she leaped over something that wasn't there. I mean, I don't know. That, fortunately, it wasn't painfully obvious, or it wasn't such a big moment that you would just linger on it, but it just seemed weird, and I had to make note of it. But here we get to the end, and Shore gets up on the second rope. Glitter comes over, gets her tag partner out of the way for what Sandy Shore is doing, and then nails Shore with her knee in the stomach. Then we get a clothesline leg sweep, 1, 2, 3, Candy Crush pin Sandy Shore. And as stated, you knew that they were going to lose the second that Sandy Shore came out there, just like the last time we saw a member of the Beach Patrol. They might as well be the Beach Patrol, but a member of Spring Break 24/7 coming out there. The second you saw that, you knew that they were going to lose. And if you ever see Crystal Waters pop up in somebody's team like that, you know that they're going to lose. So they did that, and wouldn't you know it, Top Tier pretty much wins clean again. The heel team that just keeps beating the same rotation of how many people's in that thing? The Fear Sisters, even though one of them's gone. The Beach Patrol, Beach Patrol. The Spring Break 24. They might as well just change their name to the Beach Patrol. It's the same goddamn gimmick. Spring Break 24/7, the Dojos, Blaze. So about the same rotation of 10 people or so, 8 to 10 people. Because they haven't really expanded beyond that. This is also a segment of my notes I think I could explain that some of this is kind of destroyed, even though I remember most of it. As I was finalizing my notes here, before the podcast began, I was enjoying a nice glass of vodka. And as I was writing my notes and setting my glass down, my pinky finger just happened to hook that cup and knocked it right on over and spilled right into the bottom quarter of my paper. Got it up in time, but a good chunk of that just was lost to the vodka liquid that was soaked up in the table and the papers and whatnot. And if you've ever seen this old episode of The Simpsons where Homer wrote to his wife and he was too drunk to be able to write anything coherent, it just kind of drifted off into mumbling. Well, that's what my paper looks like right now. It basically says, all this does is force wild the general. Who cares about this? That's pretty much what it says now. So, but anyhow, it is the notes that was there was how impressive is it to be the longest reigning champions of something that no one else does. AEW is probably the only other promotion that does a 6-person, and those things are pretty much, they're not important on their show. Same way as these aren't important. So I know that they're trying to get them over like, yeah, well, they're the longest reigning trios champions on television today. But, how impressive is that when there's no one else around that does it? No one does this. No one has a trios division. And even the ones that AEW has, at least, I don't even watch Ring of Honor, but at least they have teams in there to try to fluff it out. He probably got more people on that roster than he knows what to do with. But here and there, there's no point in having these. It's just not. And maybe it does sound good for them to be like, oh, this is the longest reigning trios champions anywhere. I mean, maybe it makes them sound like they're a bigger deal or that it's important somehow. But no, man, this is not worth pushing because it just isn't anything there. It's not impressive. And there's almost no way that they can shape it to make it sound impressive. Moving on. Samantha Smart promo was up next. At least that's what I had here. I don't even remember a Samantha Smart promo. Oh, yeah, it came out after that. All right. And following that, that was a promo saying that it was it was coming up next. Following that, Sibley Scoles has a backstage segment. Scoles is waiting for Top Tier. They come in after their match. They put themselves over, and then Scoles promos is the main event. This is actually, Scoles actually looked in the camera this time. I was shocked. This may be some of the better usage of Sibley, and it certainly was one of the better uses of or presentations of Top Tier. At least they get the time. I mean, I don't know who they talking to backstage to get them all this promo time that they get, but they get a lot of it. They get the promo before, they get to talk to Scoles after. I mean, they get their airtime. That's for goddamn sure. But some of that might need to be spread out amongst some of these other wrestlers because whatever airtime they get is being wasted right now because they're not promoting anything. It's just random promos that basically have told us the same thing for the last 8 to 9 months. We're the best team in professional wrestling. We got the titles. And there's not much beyond that. Yes, they had a promo that put out some threats, but, I mean, seriously. Threats about what? Because we had somebody who was so fragile that once they was in a wrestling hold, they just couldn't get up again. I mean, they're in the wrong line of work if they can't do that. But anyhow, we're not going to get on how badly they do injury angles. Next segment. Samantha Smart and the Classmaster come out for their promo. And the Classmaster comes out as silly as always. This was a pointless and also seemingly incomplete promo. I do not know what they're... Beyond her just, we're smarter than you. It's like it didn't sell a thing. It didn't put the championship over. It didn't put the champion over. It didn't put the challenger over. It didn't even put over the match. It was just coming out there, wasting pyro, getting on the mic, saying that we're smarter than you, and then that was it. That basically the start and stop of it. I was like, why did they have this on TV? She's got to be able to cut a better promo than that. But that didn't happen, so, whatever. In the transition out of that, they pull up video B-roll setting up next week's championship match. And McLean tries to sell this as Tormenta waiting 2 years for her shot. That might have been okay if she hadn't had multiple title shots already. It's not that she had multiple title shots, because there's plenty of people that have done that. There's plenty of promotions that have done that. Shawn Michaels, for instance, let's use him as an example. When he first got into his singles run, he was almost regularly challenging for both singles titles across house shows. If he wasn't going after the Intercontinental Championship, he was going after the world title. So no one could ever point at him and be like, oh, well, you never had a shot. He had plenty of shots. And then he got a couple of shots on pay-per-view against Bret Hart, against Diesel, right? But the story happened when he lost to Diesel. He got flipped babyface. And that was where, as far as most people were concerned, his journey began. Wins the Intercontinental title. You see him getting pushed. He's heavily featured. He's shown as a top guy up until he gets to the Royal Rumble, and then they really kick it into high gear. Because now this is my opportunity, this is my shot, the boyhood dream, all of that good stuff. So it wasn't that he never had any shots at it. It's just the story that was told was this was his biggest opportunity, and this is an opportunity on the grandest stage of all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Tormenta has had shot after shot after shot after shot. And with no build, this didn't feel any different. It just felt like, well, she won this thing, so here she is. She almost has never talked about, well, first off, she doesn't speak English on the show, but it's never been presented that Tormenta was going after the championship and this is my goal and this is my dream. She's had plenty of times to go after it on their show as a babyface and a heel. So there was no real difference there. In fact, there's been a couple of occasions where she just got the shot on the merit of her being the Mexican champion, whatever championship that was. You want to root for Tormenta. You want to root for the babyface going into this, but they gave you no reason to root. I mean, they gave you nothing. They gave you no reason to, like, I want to see her succeed now. She just won another match. And they pushed her into this. Like, all right, well, here we go. Never mind the fact that if you are watching anything outside of WoW, you already know that she doesn't wear the mask anymore. Her look has changed, and she's part of AAA. And it's very likely that she won't be back and forth to WoW if she's with that company. I can pretty much guarantee that Tormenta's priorities are going to be realigned. And probably realigned towards AAA. WoW may have to just take a back seat. But that aside, let's not worry about the stuff that goes on in the real world / behind the scenes. on their television. They have not given you much of anything. And McClain and Zane getting in front of the camera at the commentating booth trying to, well, this is her one. She's waited 2 years for this shot. That implies that she never got one. And that's just not true. She's had plenty of shots. There's no build here. This is one of those wild angles, depending on the viewer not having a long-term memory. So next, we go to the main event. This was scheduled to be Payola Mayfield with Abilene Maverick taking on Princess Aussie. However, that match did not happen. The heels come out, and we see Mayfield in a neck brace. Abilene then explains that Payola got hurt in the last match, but McClain foreshadows that it could be fake. Basically saying that, well, you've done this before, you faked injuries, etc., talking to Abilene. But this is also the opening for them to be able to sit at ringside and watch this. Now, in this particular instance, it makes more sense that they would just, sit at ringside opposed to, hey, come over here and sit next to me and talk. At least there was something going on that justified them being there. First, they were supposed to be there for the match, and then they got a substitute. So those things I was fine with. It's one of the few times that I could be fine with the given come sit next to me and talk and whatever throughout the match there. It also let us hear Mayfield speak. Normally, Abilene does all the talking for her. And whereas she might not be a fantastic promo or, whatever the case may be, at least she is able to give her side of her story, and it's her words, not the commentators doing it for her, or Abilene doing it for her for that matter. So, bravo for that. But as we said, this was the interview was impromptu by McClain, and then Maverick announces their replacement, which is Genesis. So she has to come out there and have her match against Princess Aussie again. That became the main event of the evening. Before that went any further, I wrote down what was this for and what does Payola stand to gain by faking an injury. I'm not opposed to the injury angle or, the injury fake angle, whatever, or faking the injury angle. I'm not opposed to that at all. I just needed to know, well, why was she doing it? Is there a particular reason that she would fake an angle, injury, for her to get out of this match? And I couldn't think of it. It's like, well, is there some sort of beef with Princess Aussie and Mayfield that we don't know about? Like, the ideal thing would have been if, let's say, this was the match that Santana Garrett was going to get her revenge. They're like, you cost me the match, and I'll be out there in the main event to take on Mayfield and get even. And then Mayfield comes out with a neck brace. Well, that would be almost completely explained just in action. I don't want to get in the ring with her because, well, she might be too pissed off and try to hurt me, so let's avoid that. Here, it doesn't seem to fit, especially if he's talking about this as the potential of a faked injury. It's the first thing I thought. I was like, well, what does she stand to gain off of avoiding this match? If it were real in their kayfabe universe, either way it goes, he should have known about it before she walked out there. It is that ongoing problem of you cannot be the commentator and the matchmaker and try to play stupid to things like this. You book the matches. So it's a near impossibility that he can say, well, I had no idea that she was in this neck brace because she showed up 10 minutes before her match rather than before the show starts, before the cameras are running, before any matches go out there. When I'm putting the board together, like, okay, you're going to take on this person, you're going to take on that person, it doesn't make any sense that he would not know. But yet it's like, what was it? She's out with a neck brace. I don't know. What's going on? It's like that. He always wants to be in a position to be able to play stupid. But he can't. They need to just go and assign a general manager, or he needs to get out of the commentary, but he don't need to be doing both. I have carried on and on and on and on and on and on and on about that. And I know it ain't going to change because he don't want it to change. But he should. He should. Him being there will always violate logic in situations like this. It will always violate logic because there's no reason for him to be completely oblivious or unaware of what his talent is doing. When he has shown on multiple occasions that I can contact the truck, I go in the back when necessary, I can make a match on the spot, that he has within that universe an unlimited source of power that just comes and goes as he sees fit. But anyhow, back to the point. That's one aspect of it that is unexplainable. As I was going, if it were real, what was she showing up there for in the first place? If it's faked, again, what does she stand to gain from it? Like, neither one of those paths make any particular sense. If it's real, he should have known and she shouldn't have been in it. If it was faked in their universe, then I need a justified reason as to why she's trying to fake it or get out of this match. Like, I don't want to be in there with her. And it would have been, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, well, all they had to do was this. I don't want to make it sound like it's just so easy, because it's not. To give some level of credit where it's due, booking a wrestling show is not an easy thing. So I don't want to just come across like, well, all they had to do is just fix this, fix that, flip this around, and then bam, you're done. I don't want to even try to remotely pass off the point that is just super duper simple. But there are times when it's like, you could have avoided this. And this could have been avoided, in my opinion. So anyhow, this fourth incarnation of Aussie and Genesis takes place because of the quote-unquote injury. And it was fine. And I have not been in a position where I didn't enjoy the matches that Aussie and Genesis have had. Genesis is a talented young lady. I've only questioned whether I thought that she was worth the expense of flying in. If what they say is true, that she's being flown in from overseas to come tape the show, I only question that because there's no metric that I'm pretty sure anybody can provide that would say that, well, we have her on the show and she gets more viewers, or that she has this kind of interaction, and whatever the case may be, so it justifies the money that we spent. I just don't think that exists. Having said that, I do believe that Aussie and Genesis work well together. And I could have seen them go into some level of rivalry / feud had it been laid out a little better. Something a little deeper than, I'm the best Australian. No, I'm the best Australian. Something a little deeper than that. And something around or away from trying to be the number one contender all the time. I'm the number one contender, and I'm going after the championship. Like, Genesis going after that thing should be over and done now. Unless they're going to try to do the same thing I said with Tormenta. Like 2 years from now, like, well, she's finally getting her shot, and ignoring the 5 or 6 other shots she's already had. But Genesis and Aussie, probably another case of this might have been a stronger outing had they had maybe a little bit more time under them. Although they did fine for the time that was presented. And it was an easily enjoyable match. So there's no downside in that. I didn't even think that Genesis being a last-minute substitute was some sort of problem. Actually, I thought that of the people that were there, she made a very likely substitute. And as we got that match, we got to see, or I should say hear, our 2 heels that were originally involved in this thing commentate on it. Which then led to, I guess, the issue at the end, for however brief it was. Earlier, we got Mayfield saying that Genesis had represented her. Until she lost. Then it was like, you don't represent me. And I thought it was nice that she would be able to flip on her on a dime as a heel should. Aussie wins the match with a splash off of the top rope after she counters the attempt of a superplex from Genesis. Just basically hoist her up, send her down in almost a gourd buster type position. And then after that got her into place, and then she hits the frog splash. Didn't necessarily care for Genesis down there like, no, please don't. So like, well, just roll out of the way if you got that kind of consciousness about you. And she hits it, knocks her out, or keeps her down for the 3, and then there we go. Now, the importance of the match, I don't know, because they still try to sell some of this like it's another step on the ladder. We're going towards a contendership. I don't know what the value, excluding the match quality. We're just talking about the narrative around it. I don't know what the value line here was. Was this supposed to help elevate a new number 1 contender? Was it supposed to connect some sort of feud? I don't know what this was for, other than that it was this cold match. Like, even if Mayfield was in it, what was this supposed to do? And not for nothing, McLean and Zayn got to start making some different references during this show. They start talking about Vegas, and then you're hearing McLean talking about Tom Jones and Wayne Newton. Yes, they were great Las Vegas acts. Fine. But you can mention somebody that's a little bit closer to present day. I mean, Usher, for instance, he had a Vegas residency. Bring him up. Ah, boy. But that was the show. Overall, it was a fair show. I don't want to say it was great, but I also don't want to say it was bad. Holidead and Garrett, good match. Nashville and Fury, good debut. Top Tier and the Island Girls and Sandy Shore, fine match for what it was. Didn't really push anything, but it's a fine match. And of course, the main event, Genesis and Aussie, which they had another good match with each other. It probably would have had some deeper connection to the audience had we heard from Aussie or Genesis about the other, not even just tonight, but just in the past, to establish a rivalry again beyond I'm the better Australian. Because that was pretty much the only thing that they had preceding this. If they had already had some sort of rivalry established, this probably would have felt a little stronger. Still fine, but it would have felt stronger. But as Genesis leaves, that's when she goes behind the desk and she's yelling at Maverick and Mayfield. And that's when Mayfield's like, you don't represent me. That was, again, to give her heel persona some credibility. Nice that she would and could just turn on a dime like that. So, all right. But that was the episode in its entirety. Fine, but I don't know where we're going with this just yet. Moving into the next thing, preview for the next episode. This is the championship match, or at least it's going to be the championship match between Tormenta and the Classmaster. We already know that. They've already talked about it. They've already begun to promote it. Like, you guys want to stay tuned for this. This is going to be great. So, as you are listening to this podcast, that may have already taken place, but allow me to read this just for my personal benefit. Yes? So, here's the preview for their next episode titled Picket Line Payback. Oh, boy. That's season 3, episode 45. And they write, after ripping through her opponents in a fatal 4-way, Tormenta secures her spot in the ring opposite IQ Superior's Samantha Smart's brainchild, the Classmaster, for the WOW World Championship. The main event promises to be a spectacular showdown to the finish. Also in this broadcast, unique fighting styles clash as Sylvia Sanchez confronts emerging talent Gabriela Cruz, who uses impressive ground fighting Brazilian-style jiu-jitsu to take out the opposition. Big Rig Betty and Jesse Jones protest the actions of Scout Parker and Sprout Greens. They plan on a little sweet revenge after the salty activists assaulted them from unknowingly crossing a picket line. Animal Instinct's Goldie Collins and Katarina Jinx reunite in the ring to exterminate Mighty Mite's Sugar and Spice for this week's tag team match against the Pretentious Bullies. I don't know if they do this on purpose, but they put a lot of focus on Samantha Smart opposed to the Classmaster. She almost never speaks. Hadn't mentioned what the title means to her at all. For all intents and purposes, you would think that Smart would be the champion in this instance. She brings it up all. Yeah, I get she's the manager. But that don't mean that you turn your client into a mute. We all know that I'm not the biggest Classmaster fan. But that don't mean just chop her legs out to where she can't even begin to get the thing over. Sanchez and Cruz. And what are they talking about? She uses impressive ground fighting to take out the opposition. She's only had one match. Jones and Big Rig Betty. This is probably the worst or one of kickoffs to an angle that I've seen them do. I don't know how Jesse Jones gets roped into this with them, but she's been part of some of the most just ridiculous angle kickoffs that WOW's ever presented. So now they're trying to get revenge for crossing a picket line, I guess, that two people were doing, and being attacked by these cheap, terrible-looking signs that don't look like they hurt anybody. So is that the crux of this entire thing? And those signs gave them a concussion that the doctor said, well, don't worry, you'll be fine in 2 weeks to be able to wrestle them again. We'll clear you ahead of time. I don't know. it makes me think about what I just talked about earlier with top tiers. Like, how fragile are they? If a cardboard sign could give you a concussion, you're probably in the wrong business. But I'm sure the match will be fine because I believe in Big Rig Betty and Jesse Jones. And honestly, I believe in Scout Parker too. I still like her. Sprout Green, the jury's still out on her. And Animal Instinct with Collins and Jinx. I was good with them separate. But what did they talk about? I mean, they literally were apart for, 2 weeks? What are they talking about reunite like they've just been gone for, months or something? And starting up, there's rumors of them breaking up. Like, when did this happen? That is the ongoing issue that WoW needs to correct. They can't just tell people these things all the time. Their viewing audience needs to see it. You either need to see it or hear it from the talent. But in the case of Big Rigs and Bourbon, you would have needed to see it. You needed to see the assault, if anything. But that, of course, that didn't happen, and yet they just had to talk it up. But Collins and Jinx being separated and having some alleged rumors about them breaking up outside of the commentators, where did these rumors come from? Where did the rumor come from with Jinx or Collins themselves? They just got on TV and said it. But whatever. I can only hope that these matches prove to be something interesting and worth watching. It's going to be very, very difficult for me to come out of looking at WWE's evolution, then return into watching the WoW. I can already feel it. And I don't want to hold them up as a comparison because it's not going to be an apples to apples comparison. But I just feel like once I see that, it's going to be like, man, whoo, they got some growing to do. And by them, I mean WoW. Anyhow, let's polish this thing on up because we got other episodes and other things to do. And so that being said, if you haven't done this yet and you're on YouTube, do the YouTube things, like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment. All of those are always very welcome. Thank you for those of you that have, and thank you to those of you that will. If you are listening to this in podcast format and it's complete audio form, just remember you can find us at greater podcast platforms everywhere. If you have not found it and you don't know how to find it, don't know why you would be able to miss that, but if you fall into that category, then you should go to WPNWrestling.com. WPNWrestling.com has everything. Has the 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week stream of all footage from 2013 on up. Features some names that you know and some that you don't. Some that have gone on to bigger and better things, including working for major promotions, WWE, AEW. I think 1 or 2 went to TNA. You can check all of that out right there. It's on right now, in fact. Might not be a match because I haven't checked my playlist, but it's on right now. And there's also, if you scroll down from the top of the website, about to the middle, every podcast that goes up drops there as well. So you always have that to go to if you don't know where else to find it and you just want to download it, or you just want to catch the audio and you just didn't feel like scanning around iTunes or Spotify or whatever other platforms that exist. Again, greater platforms, podcast platforms everywhere. Just go there, all laid out in a row, there for your consumption. Boom. There you have it. And now, thank you for listening to the entirety of this show. I am fully ready to check out WWE's Evolution. I got to see bits and pieces of it earlier, as I stated, but now I'm going to sit down and catch the entire 3 hours. I'm going to start this thing from the beginning, and I'm going to watch it straight through. And then I'll give my opinions on that as well, but I'm a little excited for it. So I'm going to check that out. Just as a reminder, WPNWrestling.com. Like, share, and subscribe. Available on great podcast platforms everywhere. I think I've covered my bases. So that being the end, you know what I got to say, that this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long. And we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.